Hello and welcome to the Mindful Men podcast, a show helping men to open up about manhood. My name is Simon Rennie and my aim is to get men talking. From mental health to fatherhood and everything in between, Mindful Men creates a safe space for conversation. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to say a huge thank you for joining me. It means a world for you to join me and talk about men's issues. And if you love what you hear, please subscribe and share the episode with your mates. You can also join the conversation on Instagram and YouTube, and I'd love to connect with you there. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's get mindful. G'day guys, and welcome to episode 10 of the Mindful Men podcast. My name is Simon Rennie, and I'm the man behind Mindful Men. In today's episode, I'm bringing you 5 positive affirmations to inspire you. Whether it's for improving your mental health or looking for renewed confidence in your work or your parenting style, or looking for something to just give you a daily pep talk, these 5 affirmations will certainly help. And they're not just any 5 affirmations that I've plucked from the internet. Nope. These 5 I have either used in the past or I'm using right now for inspiration. But before I get into them, I wanted to highlight that I haven't always been into affirmations. Prior to 2021, I hadn't had that much exposure to them. In fact, the only time I recall anyone saying an affirmation was in the workplace when someone would occasionally share them with the team. And if I'm being completely honest, when they busted out an affirmation, I cringed. But as I was recovering from burnout last year, something drew me towards affirmations. My mindset was in the dumps, and I needed something to breathe some positivity into me. So I started thinking of all those corny one-liners that other people seem to get great value from. And as I started to take notice of them, more presented themselves. And this might sound weird, but the good ones started talking to me. I felt them in the heart and the soul, and they stuck in my mind. And all of a sudden, I had this group of affirmations that really do work to inspire me. Now, that might sound a bit wanky. And I was one of those blokes who once agreed. But having gone through therapy multiple times and now a master's of social work, I can see the benefit of opening ourselves to new ways of thinking. Because when we do this, we learn more about what makes us tick. We start to see the world differently, and this changes us for the better. So, what do you say? Let's get stuck into these affirmations. I won't just rattle them off because you can just do a Google search for endless lists of affirmations. But I will give you a bit of insight into why I've picked these 5 to talk about today. So, here we go. Number 1. It's okay to be not okay. For those of you who have listened to my previous episodes, you'll know that my story involves over 25 years living with mental illness. And for about 20 of those years, I bottled things up. Depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder, all bottled up. But what I've found is that by accepting that mental illness is in my life and then taking action to manage it, I can start to lift the lid off that bottle. And once this happens, the pressure is relieved. By believing that it's okay to be not okay, I can help break down the wall of stigma that comes with mental illness. And I think this is important for men because we really do struggle to open up. We've been told for generations that boys and men don't cry, that it's not manly to show emotions, to be sad or upset. But that's all bullshit. Boys and men can cry, and they should. It's not a sign of weakness, but a recognition that things aren't okay and that we need a bit of help. By accepting that it's okay to be not okay, we can say goodbye to suffering in silence. We can break apart the shame that comes with being vulnerable, and we can normalize discussions about our mental health. because we already do it with our physical health. So why not our mental health? Number 2, you are not alone. When we're struggling with things like our mental health or parenting or work, we often feel alone. We feel like there's nobody out there that will understand what we're going through, or that nobody out there has experienced what we are experiencing. Or we even feel that we can't open up because it will burden others. I felt like this with my OCD. For over 20 years, it went undiagnosed. And this was partly because I was only a kid when it came on and I didn't know how to talk about it. I mean, I didn't even understand what it was. And over time, it became an entrenched part of my everyday life. Parts of it scared me, and it still does today. But what I found when I finally got diagnosed in my late 20s was that talking about my OCD and my anxiety and my depression helped. And the feedback that I got from therapy was that I wasn't alone, that there were others out there like me, that there were therapists out there that understood me. In fact, most of the therapists that I've spoken to have heard my issues before. And despite my brain trying to tell me otherwise, my experiences weren't so outlandish that they shouldn't be spoken about, even the most scariest of ones that I've had. And over the years, I've become more comfortable opening up. I mean, if I wasn't comfortable opening up, do you think I'd be publishing this podcast? By opening up, I can share my story. And I find that this helps other people to open up too. Then suddenly, a world that I felt was so small was actually big. I knew I wasn't alone and that there were others struggling too. And the more I read up about therapy and support, the more I realize that help is just a call away. We just need to ask for it. Number 3, the sun will always rise tomorrow. This is actually the first affirmation I told myself. In my teenage years, my OCD, anxiety, and depression was really bad. In fact, my OCD itself was off the chart. And there were a few nights where I just wanted to tap out. Suicide wasn't far from my mind. Everything was becoming too much, particularly the OCD. But I couldn't stop the thought cycles. I couldn't talk about them. I didn't know how. But shortly after thinking about tapping out, my mind would tell me that the sun will always rise tomorrow. I don't know where this came from. Maybe I read it or heard it somewhere. I really have no idea, but I think this quote saved my life. It told me that the shit that I was going through was just one day or one night of my life. I saw the sun as a token of new possibilities, of new opportunities, of warmth and growth. So if I could just get through the night and see the morning sun, everything was going to be okay. And you know what? Everything was okay. And it still is today, about 20 years later. I always fall on this one whenever things get really bad, and it always gives me hope. And hope is important because it gives us that beacon of light that we need when things are dark. That's the beauty of affirmations. They give us hope and they give us the light that we need to push on. Number 4, I have survived 100% of my worst days. This one is a newer one for me, and I think it has a lot of power. For me, it talks to our resilience. When things are shit, we often think that the world is crumbling down. We lose track of our strengths. We lose track of the good in ourselves. We think and believe that we're useless, that no matter what we do, we suck at life. But by saying this affirmation, we can turn this thinking on its head, and we can recognize that we are strong and we are good and we are resilient. Because in the past, whenever shit happens and we've been really struggling, we find a way to pull through. This might look like talking to our friends or family or therapists. It might look like us putting our problem-solving hat on and coming up with a plan to sort through the mess. Or we ramp up the good vibes with exercise or healthy eating. We put down that beer and opt for a glass of water or kombucha or something. We turn off the TV and we write down a list of things that we need to get done. Or we even just think about better days and what they look like. And as small as this last one is, it moves us from dwelling in that moment to visualizing how we're going to step free from the shit. A thought alone can give us hope. By recognizing that we are resilient and that we have got the skills to get through shit times, we move ourselves into a positive mindset. We remember all the things that we've done before to get better or to overcome adversity. And we do it again because we have survived 100% of our worst days. Number 5, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. I love this quote from Tony Robbins, and I see it as a little push to make change happen. I think it's particularly useful for those of us sitting on the fence about change. We know something needs to change, yet we're reluctant to make that first step. So we keep pushing on, hoping that things will get better on their own. And sometimes this works, but other times things don't get better. So we keep doing what we're doing. And this can be anything. It could be from neglecting our mental health. It could be neglecting our physical health. We could be struggling with the booze or drugs, or with a job that we hate, or relationships that no longer serve us. But eventually, the pain of staying the same becomes too much. So we're forced to make a decision. Stay the same and keep hurting, or change for the better. I know which one I'd pick. So there you go, 5 positive affirmations to inspire you. They work wonders for me and hopefully will for you too. But how do you use affirmations? Well, there's a few ways that you can do it. Some people, they write them on a sticky note and place them somewhere that they'll see it a lot, like a bathroom mirror or next to their work computer. Others write them in a daily journal. I've also heard of people adding them into their phones as a reminder and then using that reminder to wake up in the morning, kind of like an alarm. This is a good one because it replaces the mindless snooze that we all do with a morning quote that sets the tone for the day. Me, I use the Mindful Men Instagram page to post about them. I also like Instagram as it's full of affirmations from people that I follow. I also reflect on my favorite ones when I'm going through a rough patch. This could be on a walk or when I'm talking about issues with my wife. There's no right and wrong way about how you use affirmations. You just need to do whatever works for you. Now, hopefully you've found some inspiration in these affirmations like I have. And whilst I used to think that affirmations were corny, and I admit some still are, these days I think it's more that I hadn't found ones that actually spoke to me. But these 5 helped me fill my mind with good vibe material. And this is important for me because when I fill my mind with good vibes, there's less room for negativity to swirl around and hold me back. So if you're looking for something easy to instill some positivity in your mind, try an affirmation. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Simon Rennie. Until next time, stay mindful. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, and I hope you got some value from it. If anything triggered your mental health today, please reach out to your support networks. Also, if you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your mates. For more from Mindful Men, you can check us out on Instagram and YouTube, and I'll throw the links to these pages in the show notes below. But until next time, stay mindful.